To the Discourse with Jimi, Disu, brought to you by MTN. Because of time, I'll cut out the intro and go straight to the fact that Pastor Ighodalo, my guest, is here. He's somebody that needs no introduction, so you all know him. Morning, my pastor. How are you?
Good morning, my brother Jimi. I'm very well, thank you. Happy
please,
New Year.
I want to report myself that I've always been quoting you by saying, "Who does that?"
Who does that?
Who does that?
I know.
The good thing about talking to you is that apart from being a pastor, you're also an accountant and also someone who is neck deep in public affairs. You know, you run these weekly interviews, which all of us enjoy. So talking to you is like being at home. So the first thing I'd like to ask is to get your contribution on is, what's your general assessment about what's going on the political scene? What's your general feel about what's going on?
Well, there's palpable anxiety in the country, even as we speak now. People are not sure of their safety to a large extent. They're not sure even whether the elections will hold, and they're not too sure whether they'll really be credible. So there's a bit of tension. But also there's a bit of hope in that, well, hopefully we'll end the present government and hopefully a new government will come into place. You know, in terms of what the various parties have done, I think to a large extent they've all tried to run reasonable campaigns, everyone trying to do the best that they can. There've been a bit of mudslinging here and there. It's not unusual, it's to be expected, and so on and so forth. And everybody has been free to make their comments as they're able to. So all in all, I think we have a reasonable atmosphere right now.
Are you in any way worried like I am about, okay, so I'm worried about the elections. I'm also worried about whether they will take place or not. But are you in any way worried about the dramatis personae, in the sense that, okay, do you think that any one of them is suitable and suited enough to, you don't have any, without mentioning names, you don't have any worries about that? Anyone that, gets in the seat is okay by you?
I'm hoping that there's a class of 15 people, although people say that there are about 4 or 5 front runners, and so on and so forth, and somehow not reckoning with the other 9 or 10 or whatever. But for me, I just want to be as objective as I can and say there's a class of 15. Out of the 15, if you are not quite experienced enough, if you could have played slightly different roles, and if you might just work, we're hoping that somehow along the line, if we use certain criteria, and if Nigerians are reasonable, it's just that politics is very emotional.
Yes.
And it's very individualistic. People think more of their own interests first before they think of the interest of the nation. And that's part of the challenge of Nigeria. We're not nationalistic enough. But we need to be brutally frank with ourselves right now. What do we need? And who is the best or preferred among the 15 who we think can move Nigeria forward? There's some that I don't think will work. There are a few that might work and might just be able to push the button. But what some people are saying is that any change might be a bit better than our circumstances now.
So if you say any change might be better by circumstances, are you saying that you don't recommend that we have an extension of what we have now?
Not at all.
Because it needs to be clarified, so people don't think that you're indicting the current government. Are you saying that anything that we have now is suitable, that we can repeat? I just want a clear definition on that before somebody misquotes you.
Well, first of all, it's not constitutional to have another repeat of what we have.
But it's a party.
It's a party. Okay, yes. I'm not talking about the party.
Oh, I see.
I'm not talking about the party.
That clarification is necessary.
No, I'm not talking about the party.
Okay.
I'm talking about the individuals.
Are you glad to see this government go? Is that what you're saying?
I think they've done their best. Mr. President says he's done his best. He's done as best as he can for Nigeria. He doesn't seem excited or from his utterances inspired to lead Nigeria forward. To a large extent, we've had a lot of deep economic situations in Nigeria where 20-something trillion in debt. That's a lot of challenge. The currency has taken a huge bashing.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4, 5, or 3, 4 different kinds of exchange rates. Our productive capacity has not been well utilized, and the level of insecurity is unbearable.
Mm-hmm.
Just this morning, even my own niece Jaquad from Nigeria.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
Look, this week I got 11 or 14 resignations in my own organization. 14 between September last year and yesterday. 14 or 15, I counted them. I was just signing letters of acceptance of resignation. It's never happened before. And it's inspired really by insecurity.
Yes.
And Japa. Not all of them, I must say, are going abroad. But those who are not going abroad are filling the spaces of those who have gone abroad in other organizations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes. So companies are poaching.
As we speak.
So you work for a bank, you work for MTN, somebody in MTN Japas. So they'll come to my organization and pick somebody.
So MTN will come to your organization
or something.
Okay.
Or GTB or something. I'm just being generic. I'm not being specific. So a lot of that is happening. And we also, in my company, are picking up people from other companies to fill up spaces of people who have left our own company. So there's a lot of movement around the whole place.
Is that a necessarily good or bad thing?
It's not good. Generally for the economy, it's not good because what is happening is that a lot of the productive energy of this country is being lost. We cannot see our productive base. It's like having a football team and you are losing the strength of your midfield, okay, and part of your defense and 1 or 2 strikers. So your best players are leaving. People who should be producing, who should be working, who should be generating income for the economy, who should be growing the economy are leaving. And they are going to use their services to develop other economies. As we speak right now, about 60% of the medical competence in the UK are Nigerians.
Nigerians, yes.
60% of the medical competence. Is almost the same thing in Houston. It's almost the same thing in Maryland. It's almost the same thing in Atlanta and places like that. You have a lot of Nigerian strength driving those economies. In Canada, it's almost the same thing. It means that, somebody died a few months ago, and they took the body to a government hospital in Lagos, and they came back to me to say that they couldn't do the postmortem for 3 weeks.
Why?
Good. So they called me, and I called up the chief medical director, who I happen to know. And I said...
You know everybody anyway.
Thankfully.
Everybody knows you.
Thankfully. And I said, please, I have a body in your hospital, and they want to bury next week. But now they told him that they need what you may call this thing?
Postmortem.
A postmortem. And they said 3 weeks. He says, Pastor Ituah, I need help. He says, and you can tell them that I said so. That 2 years ago, last year, I had 1,400 medical personnel, nurses and things. He says now I have 635.
Wow.
He says the cream have left. And therefore, one person is doing what 4 people would do.
Okay, in the light of what you are describing, what then would be, if you were to draw up a job, if you were to draw up a job profile for the next president, what would it be? What would you be looking at? The kind of president that we need.
The first thing that we need from the next president is a clear understanding of our situation in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Clear understanding of our situation in Nigeria. The next thing that we need is deep compassion.
Yes.
Deep compassion for the average Nigerian. A feeling of understanding of what the average Nigerian is going through. The third thing that we need is a clear vision of where he's taking Nigeria to, or where he wants Nigeria to go to, and a clear communication of that, so that people can critique it from the baseline.
And have a clear understanding.
The fourth that we need is a spirit of fairness and sincerity to do this work for the generality of Nigerians, and not for himself or his gang or his clique. Because we need to really, really stem the tide of corruption in Nigeria. If we do not, Nigeria cannot fulfill its potential. So when you have 1 naira as national income and the nation gets the benefit of only 10 kobo.
Or nothing at all.
Well, they get 10 kobo. Or maybe 20 kobo. And 80 kobo is either out of the system or funding other economies, or maybe 10 of that 80 kobo is funding things that are not important. So the nation can grow. It means that the nation is being starved. It means that the average person cannot find a job. It means that there's going to be deep insecurity. 20 million children out of school means, Jimi, that in another 10 years, 15 years, you have 20 million bandits, 20 million armed robbers, 20 million
fraudsters,
and
20 million people who just don't understand what either democracy or good governance is.
So you can imagine almost every 10th person.
And these would then become the voters of that time.
And guess who they will vote for?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're where we are now.
So,
to be fair, where we are now, you find that there's a complete lack of understanding. There's a complete lack of understanding of the most important issues. We're voting on tribal sentiments. We're voting on ethnic sentiments. We are voting on sentiments that do not augur or bring in any form of development at all. Pastor Ituah, I must tell you that I'm worried, going through the campaigns. My worry is not even so much the election, but the aftermath. And just yesterday, I had to bring in a consultant here to start preparing our people. That should it go one way or the other, you better be ready. Because at least for some of us who are broad-minded, we can see what the horizon would look like. I have a fair idea of what the horizon, and I'm not afraid to say it. I mean, we won't mention names, but there are implications for every person that you vote for who might win this election. And I've made it my duty to keep telling our people, I'm not going to run away from it, that you need to know, you need to think of yourself and your country first. Before you think of either, he's my fellow person, when I was in hospital, he paid my medical bill. People don't understand these issues. He's from my church, he's from this, we pray in the same mosque, he's a very generous man, and so on and so forth. I'd like you to stress it more so as a man of God, to educate our people on the reason they should be casting that vote. It is very, very crucial, and none of us should run away from it. Especially those of us who God has given, look at me talking like a pastor now, those of us who God has given that favor of being in a position to educate, because you and I have seen the world. Then we come from the same background, we've seen the world, we've traveled far and wide, you've traveled much wider and further than I have, you've even gone higher in the spiritual realm. I mean,
you're coming up.
No, I'm not coming up. So, I'm going to mount the pulpit one day.
You will mount it. You just want to drop one or two things.
No, I will drop them.
You promise me.
I'm working hard.
But you communicate very well, so that's 60% of the work.
I'm working hard on it.
And you're a good teacher.
You know, it's that's my worry. It looks as if our people don't know the implication of what's going on.
That's the unfortunate thing, and that's because some of these things have been deliberate. They have, over the years, weaponized poverty, and they have also weaponized illiteracy. And the Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. When there's no knowledge, the people are destroyed. And so the first thing that God looks for is knowledge. That's why when he created the world, he says, let there be light.
Wow.
Let there be revelation. Let there be knowledge. Let there be understanding. Because if you don't understand, you cannot react or solve or organize properly. So as long as 70 million Nigerians are illiterate, we're going to be having this problem. So one of the things people like you and myself need to do is to find a way by which we can communicate to the grassroots, to the ordinary Nigerian, to the average Nigerian, to get them to wake up and smell the coffee. You know, a lot of people cannot relate the fact that they cannot get medical attention to the local government chairman who is building a second house at their expense, the governor who is driving 20 convoy cars at their expense, the president who you don't see, who is flying in private jet at their expense. They cannot connect it. They think, well, the medical thing is just as it is. But they do not know that it is because these people have not allocated resources properly and misallocated resources that they are in that problem. Right now, there's a state in the north where they have not done WAEC for 8 years.
Wow.
They have not done WAEC for 8 years. I was told this by an official of the Federal Ministry of Education. And the reason is that the governor has not made available funds to pay WAEC for them to do WAEC. Meanwhile, they're owing WAEC about 1 billion naira. He is building a government house for 7 billion naira. And his kids in his state are not going to school. And the kids are just going around the place and everything, and they cannot connect the fact that they are not able to graduate to go to university to the fact that this man is building, or woman, if it may be,
there's no female government.
is building is building a government house. This is the problem we have in Nigeria. And until we really get a person who is forthright, a person who is honest, a person who is least corrupt, if there's any such person, who is not interested.
Yeah, we can't say who is not corrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, because the Nigerian tolerance for corruption is something else entirely.
It's incredible.
It's
a
incredible.
Culture. It's a culture.
It's a disease.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
And it's at every level. I chair a few boards, and even in the boards, among people you think should know better, there's immense corruption. There's just people looking out only for themselves, and they don't care what happens to the company. And I keep saying to them, if you don't feed this company cannot feed you. If you starve this company from the bottom or from the wherever, in the end you'll have no company.
You know, a video went viral. When I saw it, I just remembered you and I smiled. Of the pastor who this part of this lack of understanding, of the pastor who said that you should pray that your children and your grandchildren turn out like the candidates that you're praying for. The reaction of the congregation was something else. There was silence. A few people were tackling, building circles around their head. But there was dead silence, and it occurred. I'd always thought that too. That how many of the characters we vote for can you, at a naming ceremony, with any of the associates, when they say we want this child to be, I can name I don't have any more children coming. Hopefully there'll be no stray bullet, because they're looking at me one kind. I don't have any. But I would, for example, in the past, you find people naming that. I could name my child Ituah, because I hope that, look at Jonathan, was named Azikiwe, and he's not, And the reaction of the audience was something else, of the congregation was something else. Did you see the video?
I saw it.
How did you react to it?
I got the same reaction. Somebody said,
really?
This pastor has taken the the legs of the table.
Yes.
Even General Obasanjo was on our program.
Yes.
On Thursday.
On Thursday.
And that was the underpinning of his discussion. He mentioned this same video, that this man brought it home to everybody.
Straight up.
And I've been sharing it with my friends who are in the political space. I said, this person you are following, can you name your child?
After him.
And the reaction is, the man will then stop and think and say,
But you might want to know that I have 3 children. No, there are about 4 or 5 now named after me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know them. They just tell me that I had a son and I named him after you.
fantastic.
Made me feel really good.
Maybe
I promise you that if there's any stray bullet, I will name this son Ituah.
maybe you should be running for office. We'll say, well, maybe the qualification for running for office now is, can they name Jimi? So you can, how many people can name a child Jimi? If you get like 20 million
yeah, that's
people.
a challenge. When this baby drops.
Okay. Oh, she's expecting.
No,
I have a few names for you.
the guy's being a bit slow, but we'll get around to it.
Oh dear, we have to talk to him. It's naming season.
It's the Discourse with Jimi Disu, of course, brought to you by MTN. I have Pastor Ituah Ighodalo, who is always a delight to talk to. By the way, we are on Facebook. Is that right? We are on Facebook and we are on YouTube, so you can actually watch us live in the studio and have a glimpse of this, my African shirt. I'm proud to advertise to anybody who might want something like it. It is Ankara, little pieces of Ankara put together, and bingo, have a shirt. These are the ways around poverty. Go to a tailor, pick up all the pieces, join it together, and then you have shirt. Nice experiment. Okay, we are going to take your reactions, your questions, and so on and so forth. The normal rules will apply. For God's sake, normal rules apply. Call from a quiet place. Mind what you say and keep to the subject. And because I know many people will want to call in, I plead that you stay within the 1 minute rule. We are going to take a short minute break, and when we come back, our lines will be open. So don't go away. We will be right back.
The Discourse with Jimi Disu
The Discourse with Jimi Disu
continues in a moment.
Every day is a new experience for me here. And look, see how excited I was coming into this studio. It was like a kid in a candy shop. What I enjoy doing the most here, let me put it in my own words, is Dear Bumi, because it's relaxing, it's hilarious. And of course, I for the life of me, I would never miss doing programs with Sheriff in the morning. It's one of the best. That's what keeps me alive and going. I think the one that I would remember the most, believe you me, is the one I did with Made Kuti, Femi's son. Every time I looked at, every time I think of the young guy, I feel so inspired because I'm always thinking of tomorrow. I'm youth driven. I'm not saying I'm a youth, but I'm youth driven. Oh, the best thing about being a radio show host is when people hold your hand in public, they pray for you, they send you messages and appreciate what you're doing. Because it's, apart from it being a big job, it's a sacrifice. If you want to do this job well, it is a big, big sacrifice. I'm not known to be a liar. I'm somebody who, and the reason why I don't lie about certain things is I don't want to be caught out. Okay, so if I overslept, you hear me on radio saying, sorry I came late, I overslept. I don't want anybody telling me that this is what happened. I'm very conscious of that. So I don't think I ever lied not to be on air. I'd have called ahead to say, because I'm a professional to the core, and you can ask those who work with me. Yeah, you're welcome back to the Discourse with Jimi Disu, and I'll now take some reactions. Can I pick that call? Hello?
Good morning, Uncle Jimmy.
Morning, sir. Who's calling?
Yes, Lucky Lola.
Morning, Lucky Lola.
I greet you, Pastor.
Good morning.
Yes, our government cannot give us everything. The truth is that we have waited, and we are tired of waiting. I tell you, Uncle Jimmy, many Nigerians don't benefit or enjoy anything in this country. As a citizen, instead of the government to be serving us, we are serving and slaving for them. But one thing I know is that there are still millions of Nigerians today who will stay behind to make Nigeria great. Have a nice day.
Okay, that's quite inspiring, isn't it? And it sounds a relatively young person, so it's good to hear that from him. Do you have any message for the youth? And I'll tell you why. I need to expatiate a little bit on it. One of the things that worries me, for good or for bad, that we took those loans is our debt profile. And of course, that responsibility will manifest itself. Maybe there are some moratoriums here and there. But fast forwarding the country to about 10 years from now, when we will be closer to the departure land and other people will be coming up, those who are 30s will now be in their 40s. The challenge they will face at that time. Do you have anything to tell them, you know, as to what they need to look out for, so that at least, as we are now, is bad enough, so that at least there'll be some reprieve for them by the time they get to that age when they can actually, the reins of power will be handed over to them anyway, whichever way you look at it.
In reality, it's going to be very, very tough. You know, you and I grew up in a Nigeria where 1 naira was equal to £1.
Much as someone. I can't believe it. You know?
Your friend Tolu, when she graduated in
Yes.
76,
Yes.
bought a brand new Datsun 200L
Yes.
for 3,900 naira.
Yes. Don't even forget, I think she went to UI.
She went to UI.
UI. When she was in UI, there were some students that got a student's loan
Yes.
and were even able to buy fairly used Beatles, just 2-3 year Beatles for 1,500, and the student's loan was 1,000 naira.
Correct. You get your bursary and you could travel.
You could
or
travel,
buy
yes,
gramophone,
by gramophone.
and so on and so forth. We had a Nigeria that we saw. About 2-3 weeks ago, one of my classmates, one of my friends, brought his son to me, who had been working in government, and the son had gotten his hands spoiled and gotten into all sorts of mess here and there. He had gotten into that mess because that is what he saw. At least we saw some modicum of a decent society. A lot of the young people now are not seeing much. And unless I keep repeating, those of us who know right from wrong speak up more, which is why I'm being a bit vocal, although I've been a bit quiet about it.
You have. We haven't heard any of your bump sets. Are we expecting anyone before the elections?
I don't know. It depends on how
let us beg God to tell you now.
How God moves me. But
let God move you.
I'm just not. I want to do things right. I love Nigeria. I'm not talking because I want to be heard. Most of the time I talk from pain and passion.
Yeah.
And from revelation from God and so on and so forth. I'm not fraudulent or frivolous. I want Nigeria to work. It's nothing personal against anybody. I just would wish that everybody will come together and look at what is in the best interest of the generality. It's arriving at that's a problem. But talking about the youth, all I want to say to them is that they need to be almost self-taught now. They need to begin for themselves to imagine the future that they want to have. They need to almost begin for themselves to set their own standards. They need to almost begin for themselves to direct their own path and know exactly the kind of persons or Nigeria that they want to see. But the good thing about Nigeria and the good thing for the youth is that Nigeria is a country with phenomenal potential. All these problems that we have can begin to turn around with one good man in government. First of all, the potentials are there. The monies to develop Nigeria is out there waiting in the horizon. And the resources are unthinkable. Within 5 to 10 years, the economy can be totally transformed in Nigeria. And it's waiting for a group of people with that mindset.
Do you see any group of people like that in the horizon, in this dispensation?
Not a lot, unfortunately. And
Yes.
that is the painful thing. Most of them who qualify for that are not within the shores of this country.
Wow.
Most of them are abroad. And a few who are within the shores of this country have been frightened into silence and fear and anxiety and lack of courage. And a lot of them don't even have the resource to show their faces. But nonetheless, there are one or two people that should take a lot more responsibility and a lot more courage than they are taking. But the unfortunate thing about some of them is that they think more of themselves than anything else. So that's why we're having this challenge. There's not many nationalists in Nigeria. Not many.
But how do you relate to, I don't mean it personally, but relate to the fact that the elite, every country has an elite. We can't run away from that. The elite is not the rich, it's the exposed. But they are more complicit in the degeneration of the country than even the poor common man out there. And assist some of these politicians in holding our people to ransom. I'm sure you find that extremely irritable.
I find it painful. Because to be honest, it's probably the elites that are really, really responsible.
Yes.
Because they should know better. But they don't have the courage. A lot of them are very, very selfish, self-centered. But a lot also have been intimidated using the force of the law. If you have been killed and murdered for even
daring, yeah.
If you have their businesses threatened and destabilized. I was at a function the other day, and I was talking to a very wealthy Nigerian who's done very well for himself. And I was asking him, what's your thinking about this politics? Which way are you going? And he just took up his hand, shook his head, said, don't ask me, I don't want to know, don't ask me, I'm not saying anything, don't ask me, don't talk. No. I said, don't you have an opinion? He said, no, he's not going to say what. I said, but it's me and you. He said, no.
Yeah, everybody's afraid of the other person. I mean,
They're afraid because nobody wants his business.
So do you... sometimes I get a feeling that we are under siege.
We are.
Wow.
I agree with you. We are.
I get that feeling which is worse than the way I felt with the military. I feel that we are under siege, and I'm wondering if we haven't swapped the military in uniform for another military in civilian garb. How do we get out of this, my pastor? What has God told you? He won't talk to me. Allegedly.
No, he will talk to you, and I'm sure he's talking to you all the time. At the time, I was a little bit idealistic, and I was hoping that we could gather some people together, come together, talk, work out a plan, see what we could do about Nigeria, that and that. And I went around talking to quite a lot of people. And I was a bit shocked at the reaction of many people. Most people, they were angry, they were bitter, they were annoyed with Nigeria, but very, very few people were ready to lift a finger. We're ready to spend resource. We're ready to get involved. We're ready to give it time. So it became a very, very frustrating effort for me. Then I went to the lower level people and started talking to them and trying to inspire them and all that. And a lot of them were saying, well, Pastor, if you was leave us alone, let's just keep doing. One day go better. So the people who should know better don't care. The people who are suffering have almost accepted their suffering, and they don't want to even engage and get involved and challenge status quo and rise up and do something. So we are really in between and betwixt the rock and the hard place. So you must give it to the people who are in the political space or are in leadership. They've done their work extremely well. They've almost demembered and debrained
the average Nigerian. But you find that the rhetoric out there is God will do it, let us keep on praying. I've said it behind you, let me say it in front of the man of God. I stand to be corrected, that there is no need to pray again because God has shown you. Is that there? There's nothing, unless you want him to come down physically to get the work done. He's shown you. It's clear. These things are so clear, it's unbelievable that you'll be having an argument with anybody over it. Do you think that we should still continue praying, or we should wipe our tears, wipe our eyes, and get down to action?
We should get down to action, but we also shouldn't stop praying.
But we should continue praying.
We should continue praying. There's some things that really need prayer. They call them coincidences in life.
Okay.
We think they are coincidences. And everybody needs a touch of coincidence. Everybody needs a touch of things that you cannot control. I've been teaching a series in church on success or succeed. The things God will do, the things you must do. There are certain things that God will do. God will create the sun, create the moon, create opportunity. So for today now, I've met her here. I didn't know her before. It's only the work of God that could make it happen.
Yes.
Maybe tomorrow she's a billionaire. And because I met her today, she's saying, Kraba Shakata Broko Yokoto.
Oh, yeah, this anointing is heavy. It comes with tongue. Are you going to marry a billionaire?
She will make her own billions. Doesn't need to marry anybody. Then I'll remind her that on the 14th day of January, we were together in studio.
Remember me, your kingdom.
So that is God. Anything can happen going forward. I don't know how you and I met, but here we are today talking about the story of Nigeria.
We met before you became a pastor.
I know, thankfully.
But I don't want to go down memory lane.
No, don't go down for the sake of the studio.
Yes.
And people in the studio and people listening. I tell
So
people.
you believe that we should keep praying and praying and praying and praying.
I think so. I'm a man of God. You can't rule out prayer, and prayer doesn't get too much. And there's some things that just need a bit of push and prayer.
But surely you're not saying that you sit back and just continue to pray without action.
No. And that was the mistake of the early church, the church that I got born again in. And I must say that the church itself is complicit in where we are. And the church,
oh, really?
Yeah, the church is complicit. I mean, I'm a man of God. I'm not shy to tell the truth. The church didn't know its role in nation building. The church thought that all they needed to do was to pray, to fast, to build their churches, build the structure of the church,
spread the word.
Big auditoria, and then spread the word and evangelize to people and all that, and the rest of the economy and the country will fix itself. But it's never happened.
Which church did you become born again? I'm just trying to remember.
Well, I got born again privately through my mother's pastor at that time. But then shortly after that, I found myself in the Redeemed Christian Church.
Oh, I see.
Freedom Hall with Tony Rapu.
Oh, okay.
And Pastor Adeboye. And that's right.
Oh, those were the Apapa, what's called Apapa pies. Yes. Those of us who are still drinking beer and those days were looking at you people from afar.
But it was a good move. It was a great move. It was a great experience, great learning experience, great teaching. But
no, I've always said that Nigeria is some kind of conspiracy between the political class, the civil service, the religious group, and the politicians. They are the ones who have held us down. You do find men of God, or so that we can spread it to other religions, leaders of thoughts. They tend to be a bit, they can't, like in the good old days when the prophet would walk up to the king and say, "Thus says the Lord." You don't get things like that anymore. And I don't think it helps.
It doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
If you don't have a strong church or religious base, or even if you like a mosque or Islam base,
yes,
that is true and sincere, and that can challenge leadership will go away unchallenged. Corruption will be there, and all that, and absolute corruption will corrupt absolutely.
Absolutely.
It was the church that spoke to King David when King David was going out of line and said, "You are the man that's messing up this economy. You have to change." But you don't have that at all. Even us pastors, churches, leaders were intimidated by the strength and the force and the wealth and the influence of government. Okay? And government uses that power very, very well. Sponsor people to pilgrimage, buy pastor a new car, give him a big tithe. The man keeps quiet. He can't talk again when that time comes for him.
They call it Yoruba to Babot.
And he keeps quiet. Oh, pastor, you just want an invitation to government occasion. Photo up.
Photo up, yes.
You want
to be seen.
To be seen and all that. No. What the church or the mosque or whoever is religious should be doing is to hear from God and communicate to men what God has said.
I watched a Larry King show about 15 years ago, thereabouts. There was a pastor there from the Catholic Church. There was an Islamic cleric. There was also a Tibetan. And it was after the tsunami, that famous tsunami that we had. That was about 10, 15 years ago. So what happened during the tsunami? Not one animal died. Long before the tsunami took place, all the animals had gone, including the pets. They'd gone to the higher ground. Not one. And so I remember that very, very well. So the discussion that day was that it looks as if man has disconnected from the heavens, from God. Not one animal. All the cats, the dogs, the birds, everything, they all moved up to the higher ground. Of course, for those who are listening, a tsunami is an earthquake that takes place in the water. So the water comes up and covers everywhere. All the animals were up there. Do you believe that? Do you think that we've actually disconnected from the Creator?
We have. Man has always lived a life of disconnection from the Creator because of man's determination to please himself, to enjoy the luxuries of life, to even position himself like God. That was the first sin. And from then on, it's been a struggle to really reconnect with God. And that's why the world is the way it is today. A lot of us don't really care about God. And even those who say we're serving God, sometimes we're just looking for the benefits of serving God and not really interested in God himself. And that's the whole story about salvation. God wanting us to reconnect back to him and to really have a relationship with him. So those animals could avoid that tsunami.
They all went up. Yes.
That's what happened in Noah's Ark. They were inspired by God to head in a certain direction away from what was to come. God just repeated to us what he had done many, many years ago. All the animals came to the ark and they escaped the tsunami. Okay? Billy Graham's daughter was saying some time ago, when America was going through crisis, people were shooting people, bombing people, this and that. He says, well, these things will happen because we took God out of school. That was the time they were saying, no more God in school. No more prayer in school. No more prayer in public spaces. No more this, no more that. You are now having the LGBTQ society dominating the whole place and insisting on certain things. God can't be happy. God can't be happy.
Do you think that the end is near? Do you think so? You see, because the problems we are talking about here are not totally exclusive to Nigeria. America has its own problems with democracy, because what you had in the past, especially before the social media, was political things were discussed amongst those who know. With the social media now, everybody thinks his or her voice should be heard, even if they are completely ignorant. And unfortunately, politics is about numbers. So it's a worldwide phenomenon that is frightening. And I sometimes say to myself, the ordinary person who is ignorant is getting very close to the bottom. Look at the kind of armaments that you have worldwide now, and those who have the capacity to give the instruction that let's get on. Do you think the end is near? Should we all start packing our suitcases and
You want to make it to heaven, Jimmy?
I will not go like heaven. The symbolism of hell with the fire and everything. I don't want to go hellfire. I want to go in a nice, cool place.
I think the end is getting near. Why? The cycles of predictions in the Bible that will predict the end are beginning to come to life. One of which is incidentally technology. The ability for everybody to communicate together and see the same thing at the same time. He says this gospel will be preached to all the world, and then the end will come. So one of the signs is that there's a bigger spread of the gospel to everybody, and that is beginning to happen. There's almost no area now that they've not sort of heard something of the gospel.
Yeah.
There are a few places still unreached, untouched, but they will get there with technology, social media. The second is that when Jesus is coming, everybody will see Jesus Christ coming from the skies. And I used to wonder how that would happen until I heard what Ted Turner said when he started the CNN. He says, we're going on air in 1979. He says, we're going to stay on air until the end comes. And when that time comes, we'll pray nearer my God to thee and switch off. That was what he said prophetically without realizing what he was saying. Now, when Jesus is coming, we're going to see him on the CNN. We're going to see him on our devices. We're going to see him. This is what was unthinkable before. You know, when we were growing up, you had one small black and white TV.
A TV, yeah.
You had rediffusion. TV started at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Then it ended at
12
midnight. And then you do the black light. And then you go. It was almost a luxury. You understand?
Now, breaking news now, everybody will see it worldwide.
Straight away.
So, would that be... Now, this might not be a correct nexus, but I'm just worried about the spate of suicides that we have. A 13-year-old died last week just because the mother scolded her for having 1,000 naira she couldn't account for. She hung herself.
Wow.
Yes, it was it on Wednesday, Philip? Wednesday or Tuesday was in the news. She hung herself, and it struck me. Maybe I can understand a bit of some people who get so frustrated they're jumping in the water. There's loads of that happening now. But a 13-year-old scolded for 1,000 naira that she shouldn't have had. She hung herself. Is there a race to go up there before the whole thing, before the rapture comes?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a reaction to the pressures of society.
That
everybody's experiencing now. And also overexposure to all the things that you see in the media, in the internet and everything. Our own kids are much more advanced in terms of information reception than we ever were. So this girl that hung herself at 13, she must have seen it somewhere. She must have seen it somewhere. She must have discussed it with her friends. She must have seen it on social media, seen it in the television and things. And maybe her mental state is a bit fragile. And she just thought that, well, if she can't have her way, she must punish her parents by taking her own life.
Okay, let me take one or two more calls before we wrap it up. It's 9:50 now. I have to be out of here in 5 minutes. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Jimmy. Good morning, Pastor Ituah.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm really happy you brought him because his analysis is always on point.
Thank you.
So I have two questions for you.
Who's speaking, please?
My name is Biri from Yaba.
Okay, please go on.
So the first question is, he listed some qualities that the presidential candidate should have. Does he think this is something men of God should actually tell, not telling them who to vote for, but qualities to look for? That's question number one. Question number two is, does he think we should be concerned about the health of some of our presidential candidates? Thank you.
Okay. So you got the two.
Mioye, very good questions, and thank you for your compliments. It's important that men of God spread this message across their pulpits. One of the jobs of a man of God or a leader, religious or whatever, is to give his people or her people proper information as to what they should do. Okay, like I said before, you're a man of God, you hear from God, you tell the people. That's what Moses did on the mountain with the 10 Commandments. So without telling them, mentioning names, like the story Jimi told about the man who said, may your children be like your leader, we should spell out to the people the qualities of a leader. If you read Colossians and places like that, they tell us what the qualities of a deacon should be. A deacon should be a man who fears God, has one wife, does not drink beer like Jimi.
I don't drink beer again.
God, thank God.
I now drink stout.
Does not drink stout like Baba Kekere like Jimi. Does not tell lies, does not do this, does not do that, does not do that. It's important that we as leaders, men of God, spread that gospel. We need a visionary leader in Nigeria. We need a leader with capacity, a leader with strength, a leader with exposure, a leader with passion and compassion for the people. A leader that can work hard. President of Nigeria must work almost 24/7, not 6 hours a day, and so on and so forth. A leader with understanding.
Do you think we need a leader who is hands-on?
Hands-on to the extent that they are on top of most things.
Of the game, yes.
They're on top of most things. But a leader must delegate.
Does delegate,
you
of
can
course.
do everything,
That goes without
otherwise you'll be
saying.
inefficient. But you should be on top. Your vision must be clear. And then to your second question, you said you are concerned.
No, she said, what is it? Should we be concerned about the health?
Of our concern about the health,
yes.
of course,
of the candidates,
of course. Maslow's law of needs, human needs. The first one is food. I think the second one is shelter. But a man who has no physical well-being cannot have peace, cannot have joy, cannot. I mean, even if you have a small toothache, you can't reason well.
Yeah. It affects your mental, whatever states.
Everything.
Yes.
So health is wealth. And any man who is not physically healthy cannot command a troop. It's not possible.
Well, we got to end it on that note. Thank you very much, Pastor Ituah. It's nice having you as usual. We'll be having... this discussion will continue on Tuesday with Yemi Candid Johnson, SAN. We'll be bringing in a few people, to get their views. But all I would say to you is do what your conscience tells you. And for God's sake, let us think of our nation. Let's stop thinking of immediate benefits. And the final thing I would say is that remember what that pastor told you, that pastor in that video. Vote for the person who you can pray, who you can name your child after. Okay, somebody who inspires you to the point that you can say, and you pray that your child should turn out like such a leader. That's a simple prayer, isn't it?
Very simple,
Very
but
simple.
dangerous. But Jimmy, thank you for having me.
Yes.
You did talk about voting for conscience. I'd like to add a caveat to that.
Okay.
Voting for what's your good conscience?
Conscience, yes, because there's good and bad conscience.
These days, you don't even know what the conscience is.
Okay, so we got to go. You have the rest of the weekend, but don't go away just yet. You need to listen to Onyinye. She's coming up next. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes,
The billionaires.
The billionaires coming up next. and the Lord has told me that this time next year there'll be an Onyinye let running around the studio. Thank you all. Enjoy your weekend and see you on Tuesday. Bye.
Listen to this to
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.